The sun on 442b rose in shades of orange and deep red, casting long shadows across the human colony of New Haven. The colony sat in a wide valley surrounded by tall rock formations that looked like broken teeth. Captain Daniel Hayes stood on the observation deck of the command center, watching the workers move through the settlement below. Everything looked normal. Everything looked safe. But safety on 442b was always an illusion. The colony had only been established for 8 months. 2,000 humans had come to this harsh world to build something new, to establish agriculture, to prove that humans could live anywhere in the galaxy. The United Earth Council had promised that this region was stable, that the local predators were not aggressive toward human settlements. Daniel had believed that promise when he arrived. Now, after watching the wildlife patterns, he was not so sure. Tommy Hayes was 7 years old. He had his mother's dark hair and his father's stubborn chin. He sat in the colony school with 20 other children, learning about 442b's ecosystem from Dr. Lisa Monroe, the colony's chief scientist. Dr. Monroe was showing the children samples of the native plants and how humans might use them for medicine and food. "This plant here," Dr. Monroe said, holding up a small blue flower, "produces a compound that helps us build strong bones. The native predators do not eat it because it tastes bitter to them, but humans have learned to process it and make it useful." Tommy raised his hand. "Dr. Monroe, are there really dangerous animals outside the colony?" The other children went quiet. This was the question that all the children asked eventually. Dr. Monroe smiled, but it was a careful smile. "There are many animals on this planet," she said. "Some of them are very large and very strong, but we have protective barriers around the colony. The barriers use sound and light to make the animals uncomfortable. They do not want to come near our home." Tommy nodded, but he was not entirely satisfied with this answer. He had seen the barriers. They were tall metal structures with lights that flashed constantly. They hummed with a sound that hurt his ears sometimes. His father had told him the barriers were good, that they kept everyone safe. Outside the colony, in the dense forests and rocky territories beyond the protective barriers, 3 apex predators moved through the wilderness. They were very different creatures, but they shared one thing in common. They were dangerous, and they knew it. The came first. It was long and lean, with 6 legs that moved in perfect rhythm. Its head was narrow, with eyes that glowed bright yellow in the darkness. That was called, and it was the leader of the hunting group. Had killed hundreds of creatures on 442b. It had hunted the massive spine beasts that lived in the northern mountains. It had taken down the armored crushers that lived in the swamps, had never failed a hunt. Behind came a creature with a wide body covered in dark scales that reflected light like oil on water. This predator's name was not as strong as, but was clever, could think around obstacles, could plan hunts that took days to execute properly. Many hunting groups on 442b respected its intelligence. The third predator was a warrior, was massive, almost 3 times the size of, had thick muscles under gray-brown skin and teeth that were each as long as a human hand. Did not think as much as the others, but did not need to. When moved into battle, things died. It was that simple. The 3 predators had been watching the human colony for 3 months now. They observed from safe distances, hiding behind rocks and in thick vegetation. They had watched the humans build their structures. They had watched the humans plant their crops. They had watched the humans move in their slow, clumsy way through the territory. Made a sound, a subsonic frequency that the human protective barriers could not detect, and moved closer to the leader. "The pattern is clear," said in the growling language of predators. "The humans are establishing a permanent settlement. They will expand. They will hunt. They will eventually claim this entire region." "The humans are weak," said. "I have seen them move. I have studied their behavior. They are slow. They live short lives. They cannot see well in darkness." "Weakness is not the issue," rumbled. "The issue is numbers. Already there are 2,000 of them. Each breeding season there will be more." Looked at the colony lights in the distance. Calculations were happening in the predator's mind. For decades, its kind had dominated this region. The other predators respected its territory. But if humans continued to grow, if humans continued to expand, eventually would have to fight for basic resources. "There is a way," said finally. "Every species has a weakness. The humans have shown us theirs." Tilted its head. "What weakness?" "They're young," said. "The humans produce young slowly, much more slowly than most creatures. Each human child takes many seasons to mature. This means each young human is valuable to the colony. This means the humans will make dangerous decisions to protect their young. Made a sound that was almost like laughter. You want to take a young one. I want to eliminate them, said. Not randomly, strategically. If we take the young humans, the colony will either have to leave this world or they will waste resources trying to protect their young instead of expanding. Either way, the problem is solved. The humans will not be the dominant force on this world. The three predators discussed the plan through the night, pointed out that capturing young humans from within the protected colony was impossible. The barriers prevented entry, but had observed something important. The human young sometimes wandered near the barriers. Sometimes they went outside. Over the next several days and studied the human patterns more carefully. They watched which humans left the colony. They watched the times the barriers were less active, and they watched the young ones. Tommy Hayes was observed many times. He was the kind of child who was curious about everything. He asked questions. He wanted to explore. He wandered to the edges of the colony where the older humans told him not to go. Tommy was perfect prey. One morning, Tommy woke before the sun rose fully. He told his mother he was going to the colony gardens to look for the blue flowers that Dr. Monroe had shown them. His mother was busy with colony food preparation. She kissed Tommy on the head and told him to stay inside the barriers. Tommy said he would. But Tommy had seen crystal formations glinting in the rocks just outside the protective fence line. He had seen them the day before, beautiful formations that caught the light. He wanted to collect some to show Dr. Monroe. He told himself he would only go a little way outside the colony, just past the barrier, just for a few minutes. As Tommy approached the eastern barrier line, watched from a distance, the predator communicated a subsonic signal to and the hunt had begun. The apex predators of 442B had targeted their prey. In the colony command center, Captain Daniel Hayes was reviewing security reports. Everything Tommy pushed through the barrier. He felt the vibration and heard the hum, but it did not stop him. The protective field was designed to keep large creatures out, not small children in. He walked through it easily and stepped into the open territory beyond the colony. The air smelled different out here. It was sharper, with a metallic quality that made Tommy's nose twitch. The rocks were gray and brown, spotted with lichen that glowed faintly in the morning light. Tommy looked around carefully. His father had always told him to be aware of his surroundings. His father had told him that on 442B, safety depended on attention and quick action. But Tommy was 7 years old. He was curious more than he was cautious. He saw the crystal formations gleaming on a hillside about 100 meters away. The crystals were bright and beautiful, and they reflected the light in ways that reminded Tommy of the holiday decorations his grandmother had shown him in old videos from Earth. Tommy started walking toward the crystals. The ground beneath his feet was rocky and uneven. He had to watch where he stepped to avoid falling. He was concentrating so hard on his feet that he did not notice the movement in the shadows to his left. Moved silently through the rocks. The predator had hunted creatures much larger and more dangerous than human children. Had learned long ago that patience and timing were more important than speed and strength. Had learned that any hunt could be won if you understood your prey's habits and weaknesses. The communicated through subsonic frequencies with and. The signals were simple. The target is isolated. Begin approach from positions 2 and 3. Do not make the kill until all positions are ready. Tommy reached the crystal formations and began collecting pieces. He found a beautiful purple crystal about the size of his hand and placed it carefully in his pocket. He found a clear crystal with points like a star. He put that in his other pocket. He was so focused on finding more crystals that he did not see the shadows moving on the rocks around him. A sound made Tommy look up. It was a low, grinding noise like something heavy moving across stone. Tommy turned to see what had made the sound, and that was when he first saw one of the predators. It was the creature was about 5 meters away, partially hidden behind a large boulder. Its dark scales caught the light and its eyes were fixed on Tommy. Tommy's blood went cold. "Hello," Tommy called out. His voice sounded very small and very young. Did not respond with words. Was not going to respond with words. Was going to attack, but first waited for the signal from. The leader was positioning on the other side of Tommy's location. Once all 3 predators were in place, the target would have nowhere to run. Tommy started backing up slowly. He had learned something in his brief time on 442B. When you saw a predator, you moved away carefully and quietly. Quick movements might trigger an attack. Tommy forced himself to breathe slowly. Then another predator emerged from the rocks behind Tommy. This was the massive warrior. Was enormous, at least 3 times as tall as Tommy, had teeth and claws and muscles that moved under thick gray skin. Tommy's mind, even though he was only 7 years old, understood something very important. He was surrounded, and he was in terrible danger. "Help," Tommy shouted. "Help, I need help." His voice was high and desperate. He looked for the colony, but he could not see it anymore. The rocks around him blocked his view. The colony's protective barriers and walls were hidden behind a hill. Moved then, the leader emerged from Tommy's left, cutting off the path back to the colony. The 3 predators formed a triangle with Tommy at the center. Tommy turned slowly, trying to see all 3 of them at the same time. His heart was beating so fast he thought it might burst. The predators had done this many times before. They knew what came next. The prey would freeze in fear. The prey would huddle down and wait for the end. The prey would accept its death. But Tommy did something unexpected. Tommy ran. He did not run toward the colony. He could not run past the predators in that direction. Instead, he ran toward the rougher terrain, where the rocks became sharper and more jagged, where the land became more broken. It was a direction that took him deeper into the wilderness, away from the colony, but it was the only way to escape the triangle of predators. Made a frustrated sound. The human child was not behaving like the human child should behave, but the hunt was already in motion. The 3 predators began to move, beginning to close the distance between themselves and their prey. Tommy ran across the rocky ground, his boots hitting stone. Behind him, he could hear the predators moving. Their movement was heavy and deliberate. They were confident, not rushing. They were like wolves that had already decided their prey was going to die. It was just a matter of time. Tommy's lungs burned. He ran up a small hill and down the other side. He ran through a narrow passage between 2 tall rock formations. His small size was actually helping him now. He could move through spaces that would slow down the larger predators. He found a series of interconnected rocks that formed something like a maze. He ran through them, not thinking about direction, just thinking about getting away. The predators behind him had to slow down occasionally to fit their bodies through the spaces. Tommy was running on pure survival instinct now. His mind was clear despite his fear. Some ancient part of human nature, something that had been passed down through thousands of generations of ancestors who had survived on Earth, was taking over. The part of Tommy that was a small child was crying. The part of Tommy that was human, that carried the DNA of survivors and warriors, was running. He found a ravine and scrambled down into it. The ravine was deep with a stream running at the bottom. The rocks were slippery. Tommy slipped and fell, scraping his hands and knees. He could taste blood, but he kept moving. He heard the sound of the predators above him, was too large to easily follow Tommy down the ravine, and were faster, but they were also confused. This was not how prey behaved. Prey did not run and run and run. Prey did not think. Prey did not strategize, even if that strategy was simply to move toward rough terrain. Captain Daniel Hayes was reviewing maintenance reports on the central power distribution system when the alert came through. His communication device beeped once, a specific pattern that meant emergency distress signal. The location data showed it was coming from the eastern sector, beyond the protective barriers. The signal lasted less than 3 seconds before cutting out. Daniel's hands went still. He knew only one person in the eastern sector, his son, Tommy. "Defensive positions now," Daniel said quietly into his radio. "All available personnel to command center. This is not a drill." He moved toward the tactical display while communications officers scrambled to their stations. Around him, the colony's defense systems began to activate. The quiet morning turned into controlled chaos. "Sir, we have a distress beacon signal from Sector 7, Eastern Ridge," the communications officer reported. Signal duration was 2.4 seconds, too short for full data transmission. Signal has been jammed. "Identify the beacon," Daniel said. His voice was steady, but inside his chest, something was turning to ice. "Beacon identification shows Child Unit Tom 7, registered to Captain Daniel Hayes." The room went very quiet. Everyone knew the protocols. Everyone knew that Captain Hayes had a son. Everyone knew that children had very limited reasons to activate emergency beacons. I want a search team organized immediately, Daniel said. All combat personnel, full tactical gear, weapons prepared for unknown hostile. Dr. Monroe to the command center now. Sarah Grant, the colony's tactical officer, was already moving. She was a hard woman with short gray hair and tactical training that rivaled Daniel's own. She had seen combat on 3 different worlds. I have 3 search teams that can move out in 5 minutes, Sarah said. I recommend we keep 1 team on standby and move 2 teams to the location. The eastern ridge is rough terrain. Multiple teams give us more options if we encounter resistance. Do it, Daniel said, and get me everything we have on what kind of predators live in that sector. Dr. Lisa Monroe arrived at the command center still wearing her teaching outfit. She had been with the colony children, showing them plant samples when the alert came through. She moved quickly to the tactical display, understanding immediately what had happened. The eastern sector is part of the territory we classified as Apex Predator Range, Dr. Monroe said, moving through data files on the central computer. 3 major predator species occupy that area, though which are fast and intelligent, the known for tactical hunting patterns, and the largest predator on this continent. All 3 are confirmed dangerous to large prey. What do we know about their behavior? Daniel asked. They are territorial but not aggressively territorial toward the colony, Dr. Monroe said. They have maintained distance. They have avoided confrontation. I have recorded no instances of direct attack against humans. This is very unusual behavior for them. Until today, Sarah said quietly. Daniel was thinking fast. The search teams could be ready in 5 minutes. The eastern ridge was approximately 4 kilometers from the colony. Travel time on foot through rough terrain would be at least 15 minutes, maybe longer. Tommy had been sending a distress signal at least 2 minutes ago. In that time, a lot could happen. I am going with the first search team, Daniel said. Sir, Sarah started to object. Emotional compromise in command situations compromises effectiveness. My son is out there, Daniel said. His voice was very calm, which made it very dangerous. You are right. I will not be commanding. You will command the search teams. I will be tactical support. I will carry a communication device. You make the decisions. I follow your orders, but I am going. Sarah looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Understood. I will have 2 teams ready in 4 minutes. Dr. Monroe was still working the computer. Wait, she said. I want to tell you something about predator psychology. These apex predators have never encountered organized human resistance. Every species they hunt has either submitted immediately or been killed quickly. They have never faced a species that fights back with intelligence and coordination. What are you saying? Daniel asked. I am saying that if they have taken Tommy, their confidence is absolute, Dr. Monroe said. They will not expect rescue. They will not expect you to organize a fighting force and come for him. Most predators at this level of dominance have never had to think defensively. That might give us an advantage, but it also means they will be dangerous in ways we cannot predict if they are surprised. Daniel nodded. He was already thinking about tactics. If 3 apex predators had targeted his son, they would want to kill him quickly and complete the hunt. But Tommy was running. Tommy's emergency beacon showed that Tommy had activated it himself, which meant Tommy was aware and conscious and still fighting. What do we have for weapons that are effective against large predators? Daniel asked Sarah. We have modified pulse rifles from the equipment allocation for environmental threats, Sarah said. They can penetrate heavy hides. We have explosive charges designed for moving large rocks. We have motion sensors and thermal detection equipment. Get the pulse rifles and thermal detection, Daniel said. If we are going up against apex predators, we need to be able to see them and hurt them at a distance. The teams assembled. Daniel stood with his assigned unit holding a pulse rifle and tactical gear. He had trained for combat situations. He had fought in conflicts on other worlds, but he had never fought for someone he loved. That was different. That changed something deep inside him. Teams ready for deployment, Sarah reported over the radio. Move out, Daniel ordered. Target is 4 kilometers northeast. Visual confirmation of child and assessment of threat. Assume hostile predators are present. Use thermal detection to locate large animals. Do not engage unless necessary for rescue. Primary objective is to recover the target safely. The 2 search teams moved out through the colony gates. Behind them, the colony's defensive systems remained on high alert. Inside the colony, other humans watched them go and began saying prayers to whatever gods they believed in. Everyone understood what was happening. The colony was sending its best fighters to rescue one child, which meant the threat was real and it was serious. As the teams moved across the rough terrain toward the eastern sector, Daniel Hayes thought about his son. He thought about Tommy learning to walk. He thought about Tommy asking questions about the stars. He thought about Tommy telling him he wanted to be brave like his father. The hunt had been going on for nearly an hour now. Tommy was exhausted. His legs felt like they were made of water. His lungs burned with each breath. His clothes were torn and his skin was scraped raw in a dozen places from rocks and sharp vegetation. But he was still running. Was becoming frustrated. This should have ended. This should have been simple. The prey should have stopped. The prey should have given up. Instead, the human child was still moving, still refusing to accept death. The predator was beginning to understand something that very few predators on 442B had ever learned. Humans were different. It was not just that humans were fragile. It was that humans could somehow push their fragile bodies beyond what should have been possible. Humans had something inside them that made them keep fighting even when they should have quit. The warrior had given up the chase through the rough terrain. The massive predator was too large to move effectively in the narrow ravine. Waited on top of the ridge, moving along the path where he could intercept Tommy if the human child tried to escape to open ground. Was still chasing Tommy. The predator was fast and intelligent, but was also beginning to understand frustration. Had trapped the prey, had multiple angles of attack, but somehow the prey was still alive. Tommy was in a cave when he heard voices. Human voices, his father's voice. He had reached a point where he could not run anymore. He had collapsed in the cave to catch his breath, and that was when he heard the sound of footsteps on rocks and human words calling out to each other. "Thermal signature sector 7.2, one of the soldiers said over radio. "Large predator moving northeast. I estimate mass at 4,000 kilograms or more." "Visual confirmation," another soldier replied. "I have that target. It is moving away from our position toward higher ground. I count one large predator on the ridge." "Searching for secondary thermal signatures," the first soldier said. "I have human child thermal signature, sector 7.3. The child is inside a rock formation, approximately 100 meters ahead of our position." Tommy heard the radio communication and he felt hope surge inside him. His father was coming. His father was real. His father was here. Tommy climbed to the mouth of the small cave and called out. "Here, I am here." Daniel heard his son's voice, and something inside him changed. Every soldier in the search teams heard that voice, and they understood what they were fighting for. One more child, one more human life, one more future generation was still alive. "I have visual contact with the child," Daniel said into his radio. "Target location confirmed, moving in for retrieval." That was when attacked. The predator came from the side at incredible speed, had positioned himself perfectly, waiting for exactly this moment. The human adults would come for the child. They would be focused on retrieval, not on defense. Had seen this pattern before with other prey species. The moment of rescue was often the moment of maximum vulnerability. His teeth were as long as a human hand, and they were filled with venom. Claws could pierce armor. Speed was faster than any large animal had the right to be. Daniel saw the predator coming at the last second. He made a decision in a fraction of time. He could not fight the predator and protect Tommy at the same time, but he could choose his position to put himself between his son and danger. Daniel turned to face the attacking predator. He raised his pulse rifle and fired. The shot was hasty and partially deflected by a rock, but it still connected. The pulse energy struck shoulder, and for the first time the predator experienced genuine pain. Was shocked the predator had been struck. The predator had been hurt by a human weapon, for just a moment hesitated. That moment was all Sarah Grant needed. The tactical officer had been moving into position to support Daniel. She saw this moment of hesitation and she acted. Sarah fired her pulse rifle in a controlled burst. The shot struck on the front left leg and something broke. Howled, a sound that was nearly ultrasonic, a sound that expressed rage and pain and shock. More soldiers were moving into position now. They had thermal imaging. They could see moving through the rocks. They could see on the ridge. They had multiple weapons and multiple angles of fire. Charged down the hillside. The massive predator was 3 times the size of any human soldier. had killed large creatures through sheer force and mass, did not believe that human weapons could matter. Learned differently when a soldier named Wright fired an explosive charge directly at the rocks beneath's feet. The charge was designed to break rock and move boulders. When it detonated beneath, the massive predator was thrown backward and to the side. Fell hard, and rocks fell with him. For the first time in its entire existence, the predator understood what it meant to be damaged. Seeing the situation deteriorating, began to retreat. The predator had intelligence enough to understand that the hunt had failed. The human prey had brought reinforcements. The reinforcements had weapons. The reinforcements were willing to fight. Was limping now, backing away from the human soldiers. The shoulder was burning with pain. This confidence was shattered. Daniel moved toward his son. Tommy ran out of the cave toward his father. Daniel caught Tommy and pulled him close, shielding the child's body with his own. Tommy was crying and bleeding and exhausted, but Tommy was alive. "I have the child," Daniel said into his radio. "Secure position, all predators are retreating." Sarah Grant and the other soldiers maintained defensive positions, weapons still raised, watching the predators withdraw into the wilderness. Hobbled away was already gone and was moving slowly back up the hillside, clearly injured. The soldiers did not pursue. The mission was not to kill the predators. The mission was to recover Tommy. That mission was complete. Daniel held his son while the medical personnel moved in to check Tommy for injuries. Tommy had scrapes and cuts and bruises, but nothing was broken. Tommy was dehydrated and exhausted, but Tommy was going to be fine. "You were very brave," Daniel told his son. He was trying not to cry himself. "You ran towards safety. You called for help. You did everything right." "I was scared," Tommy said. His voice was very small. "It is okay to be scared," Daniel said. "Being brave does not mean you are not scared. Being brave means you keep moving even when you are scared." The journey back to the colony took 2 hours. Tommy rode on his father's back for part of the way. The soldiers maintained tactical positions the entire way, weapons ready, aware that the predators might attack again. But the predators did not attack, and were traveling deeper into their territory away from the colony. They were thinking about what had happened. They had never experienced anything like this before. They had been the apex. They had been the top of the food chain. They had never needed to respect anything. But they had been forced to respect human warriors. They had been forced to retreat. They had been forced to understand that humans were different from other prey. The apex predators of 442B had learned something new. They had learned that 3 days had passed since the rescue. Tommy lay in the colony medical facility, recovering. His injuries were not serious, but he was suffering from shock and exhaustion. Dr. Sarah Winters, the colony's chief medical officer, had kept him under observation with regular checkups and medication to help him sleep. Daniel had barely left his son's side. He sat in a chair beside Tommy's medical bed, watching the child sleep. Tommy's face was peaceful now, but Daniel knew that when Tommy woke up, the nightmares would come. The nightmares always came first. Dr. Lisa Monroe entered the medical facility carrying a tablet filled with data. She had been analyzing the predator encounter since it happened. She had reviewed every soldier's account. She had studied thermal imaging from the tactical equipment. She had compiled notes and theories and conclusions. "Captain Hayes," she said quietly so as not to wake Tommy, "I have finished my analysis of the predator encounter. I think you should hear this." Daniel followed her to a private consultation room. Monroe brought up information on the tablet. "The 3 predators that targeted Tommy represent something significant," Monroe began. "They are 3 of the 5 apex predators that control this entire continent. They are intelligent. They are coordinated. And according to my analysis, they made a strategic decision to target human children specifically." "To what end?" Daniel asked. "To prevent human expansion," Monroe said. "If the predators could eliminate the next generation of humans, the colony would either have to leave this world or spend all their resources protecting children instead of building. Either way, the humans would be eliminated as a threat." Daniel absorbed this information. It meant the predators understood human reproduction. It meant the predators understood that a small number of humans could grow into a large population. It meant the predators were thinking strategically about territory and survival. "The interesting part," Monroe continued, "is what happened during the encounter. The predators had the advantage of numbers, size, and power, but they lost. Do you know why?" Because we organized a rescue team, Daniel said. Because we had weapons. Yes and no, Monroe said. The weapons helped, the organization helped, but there is something more fundamental. The predators failed because they had never encountered a species that would fight beyond its survival instinct. They had never met a species that would voluntarily risk death to protect their young. What do you mean? Daniel asked. Monroe pulled up thermal data showing the predators' positions during the hunt. Look at its patterns. The leader is conducting a standard predatory hunt. It is calculating odds. It is positioning itself for maximum advantage. It is following patterns that have worked millions of times. But those patterns are designed for creatures that will eventually give up and die. She showed more data. The predators expected Tommy to freeze or hide or surrender. Instead, Tommy ran. Tommy fought back, not with weapons or strength, but with will and determination and the kind of desperate energy that a human child can produce when their survival is threatened. Monroe advanced to images from when the human soldiers arrived. And then something remarkable happened. The soldiers did not fight to kill the predators. They fought to protect Tommy. The soldiers would have thrown themselves in front of those predators to save that child. The soldiers would have died if necessary. That is a kind of threat calculation that the predators had never encountered. Daniel understood what Monroe was saying. The predators had expected simple prey. Instead, they had found humans who would sacrifice themselves for their young. The predators are not dead, Monroe continued. Is injured but alive, is fine, is hurt but recovering. They have retreated to their territory, but I believe they are reconsidering their strategy. What do you mean? Daniel asked. I mean that predators are intelligent, and intelligent predators learn from experience, Monroe said. These three predators have learned that humans are different. Humans fight when they should surrender. Humans organize when they should flee. Humans value their young above their own lives. Over the next several days, the colony began to change. The protective barriers were strengthened and expanded. The soldier force was increased. The colony began training civilians in basic combat and defensive tactics. Word spread through the colony that 3 apex predators had tried to kill a human child and that the colony had fought back. The mood shifted from optimism to determination. The humans on 442B stopped thinking about themselves as settlers building a peaceful colony. They began thinking of themselves as defenders of their territory. Dr. Monroe continued her communication with other human outposts through the long-distance relay system. She sent data about the predator encounter and information about 442B's ecosystem. Other colonies on other worlds received the information and understood its significance. A human colony had survived a coordinated attack by multiple apex predators. Humans had won. A week after the rescue, Tommy was released from medical care. He could walk again, though he still flinched at loud noises. The trauma would take longer to heal than the physical injuries. Daniel took Tommy to the observation deck above the colony. They stood together, looking out at the landscape of 442B. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red and deep purple. In the distance, the protective barriers glowed with steady light. Dad, Tommy said, will the monsters come back? Maybe, Daniel said. His answer was honest. But if they do, we will be ready. Will they try to hurt other kids? Tommy asked. I do not think so, Daniel said, because now they know something they did not know before. They know that if they hurt a human child, humans will fight back. Humans will risk everything. Humans will never surrender. Tommy thought about this for a moment. Are humans very strong? Not in the way those predators are strong, Daniel said. Humans are not bigger or faster or more powerful, but humans have something the predators do not fully understand yet. Humans have hope. Humans have family. Humans will do impossible things to protect what they love. In the distant wilderness beyond the colony, moved through the territory with a permanent limp. The leader had lost dominant status among the other apex predators. A predator that was wounded and defeated was not a leader, had been overthrown. But had learned something important, had learned that there were prey that fought back, there were prey that organized, there were prey that valued their young more than their own lives. These prey were not worth hunting. In the northern territories and in the other apex predators heard the story of what happened. 3 of their kind had attacked a human colony and had been forced to retreat. The story changed something in predator culture. The humans were no longer viewed as easy prey. The humans were viewed as dangerous. Over the following months, the colony on 442b grew stronger. More people arrived. More structures were built. More defenses were installed. The predators watched from a distance but did not attack. Daniel continued his work as captain of the colony. Tommy grew and healed and eventually became the kind of person who could look at danger and not flinch. Tommy sometimes talked about becoming a soldier like his father. Tommy wanted to protect other children from predators. Dr. Monroe sent regular reports to other human colonies about the ecosystem and the predators of 442b. Her reports included this key finding. The apex predators of this world will avoid confrontation with organized human forces. They appear to be capable of learning and strategic thinking. They respect strength and organization. The successful human defense of Child Unit Tom 7 has established human presence as a legitimate threat factor in this ecosystem. Years passed, the colony expanded. Humans established farms and mining operations and research stations. The predators maintained their distance. The had learned a hard lesson about humans. One evening, many years later, Daniel and Tommy stood on the same observation deck where they had stood years before. Tommy was now a young man and a skilled soldier himself. Tommy looked out at the colony lights and the alien landscape beyond. "Do you ever think about that day?" Tommy asked his father. "Every day," Daniel said. "Every day I am grateful you survived." "I was very scared," Tommy said. "Yes, you were," Daniel agreed. "But you ran, you fought, you survived. That is what humans do." Daniel and Tommy watched the sunset together. In the colonies of the 442b region, humans had built something strong. Humans had established a foothold on a harsh world. Humans had proven that they could face the apex predators of an alien planet and emerge victorious. The predators of 442b had learned an important lesson. Humans were fragile, but humans were also something the predators did not fully understand. Humans would sacrifice. Humans would organize. Humans would never stop fighting for those they loved. That made humans the most dangerous creatures on this world, not because humans had the biggest teeth or the sharpest claws, but because humans had a reason to fight that went beyond survival. Humans fought to protect their families. Humans fought to build futures. Humans fought with a kind of desperation that made them dangerous even to apex predators. The colony lights glowed against the alien night, a beacon of human resilience and human strength. On 442b, the humans had come not as conquerors, but they had survived as something the predators had never encountered before. A species that would defend its own at any cost. A species that valued its young above all else. A species that would never surrender. Did not hunt for food. Humans hunted to protect their own. And humans would fight harder and more desperately to protect their young than any creature the predators had ever encountered. As the search teams returned to the colony, the news spread quickly. The child had been recovered. The predators had been forced to retreat. Humanity had won the first real battle on this harsh world. But Daniel knew this was not the end. This was the beginning of something else, something larger. The predators now knew that humans were a threat. The humans now knew that the predators were a direct danger to their colony. The equation on 442b had changed. Tommy was going to need his father to be brave now. Tommy was going to need his father to be more than brave. Tommy was going to need his father to be the most dangerous thing on that hillside. Behind Daniel, the other soldiers kept pace. They were ready. They were trained. They were about to meet the apex predators of 442b. Sooner or later, the predators would catch him. Sooner or later, he would have to stop. But not yet, not yet. He pulled out his communication device, the emergency beacon that every child in the colony carried. With shaking fingers, he activated it and pushed the emergency call button. For just a moment, he had signal. For just a moment, the colony would know he was in trouble. Then the predators' interference systems kicked in, and the signal was jammed. But for that brief moment, Captain Daniel Hayes received a distress alert. His son was calling for help. Normal, the barriers were functioning. The wildlife patterns were predictable. He had no way of knowing that his son was about to become the center of the most dangerous conflict the human colony would ever face.